So the topic is Karna versus Arjuna. And I'm glad about this topic because everywhere else I'm talking about itihasa, mythology, things like that. This is very specific. And I really like it because for me, when I started reading the Mahabharata, my journey to explore the epic started because I had a lot of questions. Yeah, I had lots of questions, lots of arguments, lots of discussions used to happen. And as you know, Mahabharata has this thing. We tend to connect with it so well that people literally fight over characters. Yeah. So even now, there are so many times that I get tagged onto some of these Karna fan club and Arjuna fan club, and then they be fighting, and then all the galis come from everywhere. That's where I was. I was like, we call Mahabharata Dharma Shastra. Yeah. And Dharma Shastra, but really it seems like everything goes. Yeah. It seems like there's really no clarity in terms of what works, what doesn't. If you see certain characters, Karna for once, right? It almost feels like Hinduism is all just about jati. Irrespective of whether a person is meritorious or not, just because he's born, or at least he grows up in the wrong family, it's always injustice done to him. Right? And somehow, with the present narrative that we hear, it seems to align with that. So it's very easy to buy that as well. Yeah. Similarly, we hear a lot about misogyny. You're like, okay, Dharmaraj, you call Yudhishthir Dharmaraj, and there he's taking away his wife, and he's still called Dharmaraj. So what is Dharma? I didn't understand. I'm like, is there everything grey? Because that's how a lot of people tell us, that it's all grey, right? In Hinduism, there is no right or wrong, it's all grey. I'm like, is it really that? So that's how my question started. Because I found it very difficult to make sense of what I was being told. On one aspect, on one end, they will tell us things about how Karna has been mistreated, how Draupadi refused to marry him. On the other end, there will be a whole love angle of Karna and Draupadi, if you've read some of the books. Right? I'm like, chal kya raha hai, yaar? Seriously. And nothing I read gave me answers to the questions I had. Because I realized over time that when people write about Mahabharata, they write about their interpretations. More often, these interpretations are not even based on actual reading of the text. Yeah, it's based on kahi suni baat. And there have been some excellent novels, fictions written on Mahabharata, where a lot of us get our learnings of Mahabharata and Ramayana from. There's one book on Karna, Mrityunjay. A generation of Maharashtrians believe this is what it is. Yeah? And at the same time, there were other books written in Hindi as well. There's Rashmi Rathi by Dinkar. Yeah? I'm a big fan of Dinkarji. So Rashmi Rathi is a beautifully written poem. But then when I started reading the text for what it is, I must say it started off with a disappointment towards a lot of these writers who I used to look up to. Because what the text says is so different from anything I was fed about casteism, about women, about characters themselves, about all being great. And that's how I used to write Facebook posts. Ki acha aisa nahi hai aisa. Thanks to COVID, they were replaying Mahabharata Ramayana in Bharat. And I used to write about that, and people were like, oh, this is very interesting. It seems like what we know is completely different from what Vyasji has said. Yeah. So that's how my writing journey began. I was studying already, as I said, for my understanding. Now the question is, on what basis do I claim one versus the other? On what basis do I say that Vyas Mahabharata is authentic versus say Mrityunjay? Because they're always told this is all mythology. Right? Mythology hai to kuch bhi likho. It's all chalta hai apna view. So again, as I was studying, I realized that it's not so confusing at all. Yeah. There is a very clear definition, or not even definition, we clearly know what is itihasa, which is Vyasa Rachit Mahabharata and Valmiki Rachit Ramayana. There is absolutely no confusion there. Tradition believes that this is what it is, even the retellings that have been based on Mahabharata and Ramayana, they all refer back to the original source. Yeah. So there is really no confusion. Now what is itihasa? If you've heard some of my talks, I say this all the time. Itihasa is dharma artha kam mokshana upadesha samandita purvavutta kathayukta itihasam prachakshate. Purvavutta. It has happened in the past. Katha rupa. It is narrated in a katha form. So there will be a little bit of exaggeration, there will be a little bit of metaphors that are put in the story which has actually happened. And this itihasa is not just a documentation of the past. It is meant to give us lessons for life. Yeah? And that part is usually forgotten because when we see or when we read, immediately our minds are like, ye sahi hua, ye galat hua. This is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. This guy was right, this guy was wrong. We start judging. Of course we will judge. There is no way to not judge. That's how the human mind works. But the purpose of the text itself is not just to judge them, but to learn from all those characters. So in that sense, I give this example. A lot of you might have done MBAs. We have case study methods, right? So Dharma Shastras tell us what to do, what not to do, do's and don'ts, all that we are told. But how do you actually implement that? What happens when you live life in a certain way? What happens when you don't live life in a certain way? This is what the Itihas tells us. It is a case study of the Dharma Shastras. Yeah? So this view itself helped me develop a drishti towards reading our text. Yeah? Because in today's time and age, everything is seen from the lens of conflicts, anthropology, sociology. Somebody is oppressed, somebody is an oppressor, right? That is not what our texts are meant for. Our texts are meant for, okay, jo hua, hua. Whatever happened has happened. What is in it for me? What do I learn from those characters? Yeah. Now I'm giving all this background. I'll come straight to the topic. Tell me something you know about Karna and Arjuna, and what are your views on that? I want to know why this topic. Why do you want to listen about this? Anybody?
Both were fighting for what they believed to be right, and yet it was Arjun's side that won.
What was Karna fighting for?
He was fighting from Kaurav's side, and he already committed to his friend Duryodhana that he would fight in their army.
Okay.
And so he did not want to go back on his word. And on the other side, Arjuna was a sibling of Pandava, and they were fighting because they had been stolen from their birthright. That's the story we have.
Okay, no, fair. Fair. What was the reason for Karna to fight? Or even Duryodhana?
I think all his life, Karna was fighting for recognition. Recognition that he believed that he should get, but it was taken away from him just because of the way he was born or destiny or whatever we can call it. And that was a war in his mind throughout. That whatever books we have read or shows we have seen, that's how it is portrayed. That he's feeling bad, and everybody is supposed to feel bad for him because he's so good and he's still not getting what he deserves.
Fair enough. And we see that in television, like Sudputra, Sudputra, Sudputra. Right? It's almost like a Gali. Fair. Absolutely. And of course, he did not get the recognition. Why? What are the examples of him not getting the recognition? When we say he did not get the recognition, what are the incidents that happened with him which tell us that he did not get the recognition? Swayamvar, okay.
He wasn't accepted as Karna's.
Right. Okay, what else?
He was not allowed to participate against Arjuna in one of the competitions.
Good, yes. What else? We'll take all of these incidents one by one. And we also see why Arjun gets the problems that he does. Many of us also believe it's not fair. Probably Karna was better. And if you see a lot of comments that come on a lot of my videos, that's what they say. That, oh, she's casteist. Maybe she's not giving Karna his due, or she's taking Arjun's side. Yeah, I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. They are both my ancestors. Right? I have no special attachment to one versus the other except for what they stood for. Right? They are all our ancestors. They are not somebody else. This is not like an Aryan Dravidian thing. They all are just the same. Okay. So let's start with some of the things we just discussed, and then we will go into why Arjun, why Karna, and the verses. So I'll give you information. Karna versus Arjun. The verses is what we will all discuss. Okay. I'll just tell you what you have just said about Karna and what the text says. Okay. So let's start with Dronacharya not accepting Karna. Now do you know that Karna is a student of Dronacharya? There is no instance in any manuscript that Dronacharya does not accept Karna. Karna is very much a student of Dronacharya. But then why does he go to Parshuram is the question. Right? So when Dronacharya So when Dronacharya comes to Hastinapur and the kids are sent to him, I mean they are not kids, they are youngsters, they are sent to him as students, at that time a lot of other youngsters also come, like the Vrishnis and people who are close to Dhritarashtra. So Adhirath, who is the foster father of Karna, he is called to be Dhritarashtrasya Sakha. He is the friend of Dhritarashtra. Why? Because he used to be Sarathi and all that. Yeah? So because of that, Adhirath also sends his son Karna to Dronacharya. Radheyacha Sutaputra Dronacharya Iyat Tadha. When other students went at that time, Dronacharya, like Karna also went, and Karna is Dronacharya's Shishya. Then what happened? Why the whole Parshuram story? It so happens that Sutaputra Radheya Nityam Spardha to Parthena Saha. He is forever competing with Arjuna. Now remember, Arjuna is much younger than him. Okay. But Arjuna is extremely focused on what he is doing. He doesn't care about anybody else, not even his brothers, nothing. Yeah. So this guy is always competing. And then it says, Duryodhanam Samashritya, under Duryodhan's protection, Ati Amarshana Parthena Sama. So he is always very jealous of Arjuna as well as of Pandavas in general. Okay. Now at one point he realizes that if I want to compete with Arjuna, I will need to know the Brahmastra. Okay. So he goes to Dronacharya and he tells him that please teach me the Brahmastra. Now Dronacharya knows, so he says I want to compete with Arjuna and hence you teach me the Brahmastra. So Dronacharya, he knows Daur Manasya. He knows what is the idea in Karna's mind, the ill will that Karna has for Arjuna. And that is why he says that no, I can't teach you. Also remember, Dronacharya does not teach Brahmastra even to Arjuna. He has taught Brahmastra to his son Ashwatthama, which is only half. Ashwatthama also knows only to send and not to bring it back. And we know what he was about to do with that. Yeah, he was going to kill the baby of Uttara when the baby was still in her tummy. Yeah. So even to Arjuna he is not taught. So he says no to Karna, that I can't teach you the Brahmastra. So Karna says, okay fine, if you are not going to teach me, then I will go to another guru. And hence he goes to Parshuram. Okay, so this is the first thing. What we are told that Dronacharya said, I won't teach, that itself is not true. Second, the Swayamvar. Yeah, Sutam na varyami. He says, I won't marry. Now it's interesting that this incident, you find it in some manuscripts. But if you see the critical edition of Mahabharata, you don't find this. And there is a very strong reason for this incident not being there. I'll tell you 2-3 reasons. Yeah. First is when the Swayamvar begins. At that time itself, They say that Sir Karna, Duryodhana, with Karna, all of these princes had come to participate. Then before Arjuna is going to participate, again they say that all of these guys tried. Sir Karna, Duryodhana, Shalva, vagere, all of them failed. Okay. And now this son of the Brahmin is going to try because Arjuna is disgusted.